This poll was weird. I mean, Superstar Saga definitely has a wide range of bosses that are either interesting or kind of boring, so I guess the results being this varied does kind of make sense. I also included Popple and Rookie on this list, which I didn't do for my original boss ranking. So yeah, the results were very interesting, and there was definitely some tiebreakers that is going to be very annoying to talk about in this video. And if you're wondering, I have the tiebreakers broken by my Discord server, so if you want that power, join my Discord server. It's going to be linked in the description below. But before we actually get started in this video, I just want to mention, I am still trying to hit 1,000 subscribers before summer break starts. So if you're into the Mario RPG serial, or you know a Mario RPG fan that is subscribed, please tell them to subscribe, or subscribe yourself. But other than that, let's get started on this video. So apparently the worst boss to you guys is Trunkle, but I mean, I'm pretty sure people would agree that Trunkle is not the worst fight in this game. I mean, it's not a bad fight at all, in fact. I mean, I like the attacks here, they're not annoying to dodge, but I know for a fact not many people are going to be saying that Trunkle is their favorite fight in Superstar Saga. Well, first off, it's very similar to Mrs. Thwomp and Partners in Time, and it's just not super memorable, and there's just better bosses in Superstar Saga. And that kind of applied in the tiebreaker vote as well, for the other bosses that got 0 votes. People just thought that those other bosses were better, and yeah, I can definitely see why. Again, the main reason why I do understand why this got very little votes is because it's basically a worse version of Mrs. Thwomp, and I do think that it's just kind of unoriginal, splitting into 4 copies. So it makes sense why it's at the bottom, even though I really don't agree with it. I personally put it at the upper half of Superstar Saga bosses, but I guess I wouldn't vote for it either, so it does kind of make sense why it is at the bottom of this list. Hurus was one of these bosses that was just put into a really annoying tiebreaker. It was just really annoying to deal with. At least this one lost, so it didn't have to actually break the tie. So it wasn't terrible. But this boss itself, I knew for a fact that it wasn't going to get many votes. But I actually expected maybe 1 or 2 votes, so I was kind of surprised when I got none, at least at the beginning. I'm glad that it at least didn't get at the bottom spot, because I do think that the concept here, or at the very least for this early in the game, it has a pretty good boss concept, even though it's so extremely easy if you have Advanced Splash Bros and Advanced Bounce Bros. I just admire the concept being this early in the game, especially because Dragahoho and Tolstar were basically surrounding this boss, so I mean, I do like it, but I definitely understand why I got 0 votes initially. Never have I been more happy for a boss fight to get 0 votes. I've never said that Mom Piranha is a bad fight, and I still don't think so. I just think it's the most forgettable fight in Superstar Saga. I don't remember any of the attacks. I remember none of them. That's really sad. Literally the only thing I remember is that the Piranha enemies have elemental weaknesses, which is good because you got the hand powers. So, that's it. That shows how forgettable this boss fight is for me. So, I'm glad that it won the tiebreaker because I do think that it is better than Hurus, even though I like Trunkle more than Mom Piranha. And I guess it does deserve at least to be number 12, but oh my god, it's so forgettable for me. I would have not minded at all if this landed at the bottom, but just to make you guys happy, you guys voted for it to be number 12. Fair enough. Tolstar barely escaped the bottom because it got a single vote. 1 vote. On this whole poll, it got 1. I mean, I know who voted for it. I remember this person, said why they actually like Tolstar as their favorite boss from Superstar Saga, so it's probably that person. I don't get it at all. I personally don't. I think the boss fight itself sucks. It has 1 attack, and it can fake you out, but it's really easy to point out the fake out, so it doesn't even matter. I also think it's super easy to defeat, and yes, you may say it's the first boss, but when you look at other first bosses in other Mario RPGs, you can kind of see my problem with it. It's not as easy as Tolstar is. That's the thing about it. Tolstar is the easiest first boss in my opinion, which is really sad. I mean, if you have the advanced moves, which most of the time you will if you played Superstar Saga more than once, then you're gonna demolish Tolstar in less than 3 turns, and that's just really pathetic. And that is why it's personally my least favorite boss in Superstar Saga, but it's number 11 here because it got 1 vote, which is not something you can say about the other 3 bosses that we talked about so far, so I guess it kind of deserves to be number 11 here. Now we get to talk about the most annoying tiebreaker on this list. Dragahoho and the boss after this got tied. Twice. Actually 3 times now that I think about it, because it got tied in the initial poll, then on the first tiebreaker, where 4 bosses got 2 votes, then these 2 bosses tied, and then it went to a 3rd tiebreaker, and then it tied again. So I had to be the person that broke it. And to be honest, these 2 fights are not even that good, so it didn't even matter. It's like 2 people that you just don't care about get into a fight, and you have to pick a side. Like, you just don't really care to, and that's basically how I felt. But Dragahoho is worse, because Dragahoho is my 2nd least favorite boss in Superstar Saga, and I don't like it, mainly because it has 1 attack just like Tolstar, and this is after Huris, so it should have been more complicated, but it just wasn't. I know someone on my Discord server mentioned that it's kind of like Rex where it shrunk, which that's definitely a good thing, and I do like the rock getting spat out of his mouth, which kind of makes him getting squished irrelevant, but his attack is still really easy to dodge, and it's only 1 attack, which is really pathetic, and you can take out the stone pretty easy with advanced bounce bros, so there's just not much to this fight, and it's why I really just don't care about it, and why it's really surprising it got 10th. I'm surprised it's in the top 10. I expected to get 1 or 0 votes. I did not expect it to get 2, and even have a possibility of getting up to 7th place. But I'm so glad that it's the worst out of the 4 bosses that got 2 votes. So, Wiggler was the other fight. Yeah, you guys can kind of see why I really did not care about these 2 tying. It's just a really basic fight. Wiggler isn't terrible, and it does have more than 1 attack, unlike Dragahoho, and it has a better concept, turning all the red body parts into yellow, but it's still extremely basic for a Mario RPG boss, which is why it's still super low in my opinion. I mean, it did get 2 votes, and I do think it actually deserved the 2 votes this time, unlike Dragahoho, so it's not bad in that regard. I do think it's out of nowhere, so that's not really that great, and it is definitely still extremely easy since you do have Chopper Bros and Knockback Bros at this point, so yeah, it's still really easy, and in that regard, it still probably should be a bit lower. But, I mean, it getting 2 votes and it being number 9 on this list, I'm not opposed to. God, I love this music so much. But seriously, on a good note, Queen Bean is a good fight, and I think that this is the perfect spot for it. Number 8 is the perfect spot for Queen Bean. It's a good fight, but it's not phenomenal or anything. I mean, it is pretty early in the game, so it did do a pretty good job for where it is. I mean, you only have Bounce Bros, or Advanced Bounce Bros, and Advanced Splash Bros, and I don't think that they're overpowered here, which is pretty nice. I also think that Queen Bean's attacks are pretty good, especially the one where you have to jump over the spitting beans. That's actually pretty good because if you jump on them, then a beanie's gonna get spawned into the battlefield, and then you have to take care of that as well. So, it's pretty good in that regard. The reason why it's not higher is obviously because you don't have enough Bros attacks, and it's definitely somewhat easy, but I think number 8 is a great spot for it. And it did get 2nd place in the tiebreaker, but once you see what actually won, you'll see why it got 2nd place. And again, I think 8th place is perfect for it. Good job on that. So Hermie III completely demolished the tiebreaker, and rightfully so in my opinion, because I think out of the 4 bosses that got 2 votes, Hermie III was easily the best. And it's because he has multiple attacks, and his attacks are decent. I wouldn't say they're great, but they are good for what they are supposed to be. I also like that he goes inside of his shell. I like that you have to use fire, which is pretty specific to bring him out of his shell. And, I mean, it's just an enjoyable boss fight in general. He also is pretty funny with his weird text. So, That's probably why other people voted for him as well. So there's definitely a lot to like with the Hermie fight. The only reason I personally am fine with it being at number 7 and not any higher is because it is just kind of basic in a way. I think other people would put other fights higher, and obviously it's why it only got 2 votes. But I am glad it got number 7. It definitely deserves to be at this spot. Chuckleader got 3 votes, and yes, that doesn't really sound like that much, but we're at the number 6 spot, so that's pretty impressive in my opinion, and I'm so glad that Chuckleader got 6th, because in my opinion, this boss is pretty underrated, because it has a wide range of attacks for this early in the game, and your attacks don't even do that much damage to the boss itself, unless it goes really weak, which in that regard is good as well, because Bubbles comes into the battlefield and just heals him by telling him jokes, which adds a little bit of charm to the fight. I'm so glad that it got 3 votes. I'm glad it wasn't clustered with the 2-vote bosses, because this boss is super underrated, and it getting number 6 makes me really happy, so thank you guys for that. And Chuckleader definitely deserves to be number 6 on this list. Obviously, the top 4 were pretty definitive. I'm pretty sure you guys can point out exactly what the top 4 is. So, Jajora and Jajora's friend getting 5th place is probably the best it could have done. And it got 5 votes, which is a decent amount. And the reason why it probably got these 5 votes is because you have every single bro's attack, so more fun in general while you're attacking. Also, Jajora and Jajora's friends just have great attacks. I mean, their attacks are really good, and probably the best attacks we talked about so far. Not the best attacks in the game, you obviously know what that goes to, but it's pretty good, and probably one of the best in the game. So, I really enjoy this fight in general. I do wish that you could have tried to kill Jajora, but most of the time she's just off the screen. She tried to get her wand back, which in my opinion is pretty annoying, because I kind of wish it was like a Poplin Rookie thing, where you can kind of decide which one you want to kill first. But no, and I guess that's a bit disappointing. I mean, you could try, but it's just not gonna happen, because she's just off the screen way too much. She's off the screen more than she's on the screen, which means also there's less attacks that you have to deal with, which means that the fight gets easier. Yeah, not a great thing, but in general, this fight's really fun. I mean, the attacks that do happen are really enjoyable and really fun to dodge, so obviously this fight does deserve to be number 5. Cacklota getting this high is pretty understandable to me. I mean, she's one of the top 4 bosses that we're obviously gonna get in the top 4. I mean, these are like the final 4 bosses in the game, so it does make sense. Even though Cacklota is at Woohoo University, she's the main villain, so of course she's gonna get some votes. I mean, I do like this fight though. I like her attacks, and even for this early in the game, they are somewhat hard to dodge. I also like that she has a decent amount of health. I like that she clones herself. I mean, there's just a lot of things here to like. Is there anything not to like? Well, no. I mean, I guess you could say that fighting Cacklota this early is kind of lame, and I guess I can see where you're coming from, which is why it should be at number 4. But you also don't have every single bro's attack, so I guess that's another thing. But other than that, I mean, Cacklota is a great fight that's pretty early in the game, so it getting this high is pretty understandable to me. It's the Fawful fight. It got 8 votes, which is actually a decent amount, because this fight, in my opinion, is kinda average for late game, but I mean, it's obviously a really enjoyable fight. I do like that he goes into his little machine bubble thing, I don't know what it's called, and it completely protects him from all attacks, and the only way to get him out is to overheat the machine. That's the only way, and I'm very glad that it does that, because in general, he's pretty weak. I also like that most of the time he's flying, so you can't use stuff like hammers or the hand powers. So there's just little touches that makes the Fawful fight pretty good. I also like the attacks from the Fawful fight. They're not phenomenal or anything, but they are pretty fun to dodge. So, I mean, yeah, the Fawful fight's great. Is there anything holding it back? I think that people won't really like that he's constantly in the machine. And, I mean, Bowletta and Cackletta's soul is basically right after this fight. So people are going to remember that fight compared to the Fawful fight. And that's basically what happened to me until I did the Superstar Saga boss ranking. So because of that, I think Fawful only deserves to be number 3, but getting number 3 on this list is a very high spot. So on the poll, I had the Popple and Rookie fight. This counted for every single one of them. So I wasn't thinking like combined quality, just like maybe an average. So it getting second place on this list surprised me, like a lot. I mean, they're good characters, they're pretty memorable from Superstar Saga, but 25 votes, that's a lot. I did not expect that much. I mean, these top 2 basically had 2/3 of the votes, understandably, but it still shocked me. So, Popple and Rookie. I mean, these fights are okay. I don't really care about them that much. They're not bad, of course, but there's one main problem, and you guys could probably guess what it is. They're too easy. Like, way too easy. Most of the time, I could just destroy Popple in maybe 2 turns at most. Because you have Advanced Splash Bros, and then in the second fight, Chopper Bros and Knockback Bros. So it's super easy, and because of that, it's just not that fun in my opinion. I think the attacks, though, are good. The first fight has somewhat bland attacks. I mean, the second fight's a bit better with the Bros attack, even though I've never been able to experience it because I destroy them too fast because the boss fight is too easy. The third fight's kind of boring because it is only Popple, and the fourth fight with Birdo is actually pretty good. I do actually enjoy that one the most, and it's pretty fun. I like Birdo's attacks, and I like Popple's attacks with them. So because of this, I think the Popple's fights are good. I do think that it deserves second place. I'm glad that I got second place, but I'm glad it did not get first place either, because first place, well, it really did deserve to be first place. That's all I'm gonna say. Battletta and Calculated Soul is the final boss in the game, and it got number 1 because it's the final boss. Was it surprising? No. Was it well deserved? Abso-freaking-lutely. This fight is really good. I think the Battletta fight is good enough. I think it's a good startup with the Calculated Soul fight because it's solid. It has good attacks, but it's nowhere near the difficulty of Calculated Soul, and that's why Calculated Soul just stands out to most people. Because Calculated Soul is so much more difficult compared to every other boss in Superstar Saga. So because of this, it's a much more enjoyable experience, and it is somewhat of a breath of fresh air. Because of that, it's really fun, and I do enjoy it. I also like the attacks from Calculated Soul. They're all really fun to dodge, and she attacks more than once. You also start off with 1 HP for both bros. This isn't really that much of a big deal because you can just use a Super Nut or a Max Nut, and then you're good. But it is definitely something to point out, and it does make it a bit more stressful, especially if she attacks first. And, most importantly, her weak point is pretty concealed. You have to destroy all of her body parts before you can attack her heart, aka her weak point. And when the heart actually comes out, then all of her body parts just regrow, which is pretty annoying because you have to either attack her body parts or you attack the heart itself. So, I really do like this fight. It's really fun, it's difficult, which is a breath of fresh air. There's just so much to love about this fight. I do think that the theme is not really that great for a final boss, but everything else is just so good. And yes, the difficulty will eventually wear off, and when it does, I don't think the fight will be that great. But for now, I really do love this fight, and I'm glad that I got first place and 29 votes. That's a third of the poll, which is ridiculous. Thank you guys for watching this video. My next video will be another one of the fan voted polls. I hope I see you guys in the next one, and if you lasted this long, I really appreciate subscribing. But other than that, G-bye.